I'd like to call this Ways and Means Committee meeting of Tuesday, October 4th, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Fox.
Here.
Radke.
Excuse.
A motion to excuse Commissioner Radke.
Support.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? She's excused.
Krygier.
Yes.
Bigot.
Here.
Kunis.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Garrett.
Move to excuse.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Changes to the agenda, we do, oops, yes.
If I could, on the agenda, I'd like to add a possible bullet point or make a motion after we receive the budget to have the chair talk with Mr. Redmond to look at the possibility of helping review the budget for this year.
You're going to put
Do you-
that, you're going to put that on?
So do you want to
I'd
add
like
that to new
added.
business?
Yes.
Okay. Then we will add that to new business. And then also an add to new business is possible resolution for the purchase of 2 generators for 911. That should be a separate piece that everyone has. So we'll also add that to new business. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, is there a motion for approval of the agenda as modified?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes of September 6th?
I'll move them.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, at this time, item 6 will have public input for anyone wishing to speak to the commission. Please go to the podium, state your name and address, and I believe there's a paper there for you to write it as well. And please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. And nobody wants to, okay, we'll move on. Petitions and Communications, the county executive proposed budget overview and presentation. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
I'd like to, if I could, Madam Chair, also thank Sean and Kim for the excellent job they've done in bundling the executive budget for a presentation today, and thank them and the entire staff for all the work they've put in on this. It's a highest budget we've probably voted on, but they'll explain why and, what we're prioritizing. So, thanks.
Thank you for your leadership, Jim. And this is the 2023 Executive Recommended Budget Presentation. I also do want to thank especially Kim Presidents and Noreen Weiler, who have, in addition to all the finance staff, gone the extra mile. So thank you. We're going to do an introduction of the Executive Recommended Budget. We're going to review our revenues, expenditures, and then proposed recommendations. As always, with all Bay County budgets, we strive to balance the needs of the citizens of Bay County and its employees while ensuring fiscal responsibility and excellent service to the Bay County community. The process begins in June. In June, the departments and component units receive the budget package. They turn them back into the Finance and Budget Department in the 3rd week of July. In August and September, we work with the county executive to compile this executive budget to meet our October 1st deadline for the board. And then going forward, we'll be working with the Board of Commissioners to prepare a budget that will be ready for voting at the full board meeting in either November or December. Taking a global look at county spending for all funds, it's budgeted at $155 million, up from 2022 at $146 million. The use of fund balance is a little more than $4.7 million for general fund, a little under $1 million for the health department, approximately $758,000 for the 911 service fund, and about $667,000 for Department on Aging. Total general fund expenditures are budgeted at $44.2 million, up from $38.2 million. So this is a $6 million increase. It's mostly due to the new pay increases, the health insurance fund, capital outlay projects, and our operating transfers. Looking at our revenues, as you can see from this slide, approximately 41% of our revenue is comprised of our taxes, to a lesser extent, our other financing, state grants, other revenue, charges, federal grants, etc. Property tax collection history, this is of special importance to me. The actual numbers are up to 2021. This was a surprising pandemic effect in 2020 during the COVID shutdown. We were unclear what was going to happen with people's property tax payments. Surprisingly, people home getting their stimulus money used it to pay their property tax bills, so we had an increase. And as you can see, that continued as stimulus funds were received in 2021 as well. The budgeted numbers for 2022 and 2023 have continued to be in line, and we believe our budgeted numbers accurate to the best of our ability. These are our general fund budgeted expenditures. As you can see, wages and benefits comprise 62% of our budget. Pulling two counties who were comparable counties in the wage study, Allegan County and Berrien County, they are both at about 64%. And as you know, at this budget presentation last year, we were at 65%, so we are in line with other counties comparable size.
Sean,
Yes.
that last slide, we were at 65% last year, 62% this year, and would you say I think we had about $6 million increase? How does it go down if we have a $6 million increase?
A larger budget.
Well, I understand that, but
Sure,
what's the
so just,
reason?
Other expenditures in other places, I would say our capital outlay, operating transfers out, those are the other large components that are bringing down that wage and benefit piece of the pie. And, you know, after additional working, we may get back to that 65% number. That's just the budgeted number at this point. Looking at expenditures by function, general government is the largest, followed closely by public safety, judicial, health and welfare, and recreation and culture are the next largest functions. Health insurance. As you know, this board recently received and approved a recommendation to increase our budgeted amount for the health insurance fund by approximately $500,000. Last year, we budgeted $3.9 million for the health insurance fund. With your recent adopted resolution, we're going to be at about $4.4 million. We feel $4.8 million is the adequate measure to be at for next year, given the shift in health insurance, the health insurance costs, and the trend generally upward. Retirement. The actuary presents to the retirement board in October of every year, so we're working a couple years back. This is information based upon the 2020 valuation. We will be receiving the information on the 2021 valuation shortly. So based on the 2020 data, we are currently funded in the general group at 129% and in the sheriff's group at 132%. And if you look at our historical percentage of funding, we have contributed at 8% up until 2017 with the change of PA 202. We employ the dollar cost averaging investment discipline of investing the same amount every year in order to take any market volatility out of it. And you can see that this has served us well. So while in 2008, it looks as though we are extremely overfunded at 153 and 132, we all know what happened after 2008. And you can see that even in years like 2012 and 2013, we could all feel secure that we could meet our obligation to retirees. So the 4% that we've been contributing after 2017 has been contributed and is what we are proposing to be contributed in the executive recommended budget. Major capital expenditures in the general fund, buildings and grounds, county parking lot, county elevators, fire alarm upgrade, exterior cleaning, a vehicle, truck with a plow, and a van are some of the major items. Sheriff's Department, jail fire panels, secondary road patrol vehicles, community center gym floor, fairgrounds new storage barn, 911, purchase of public safety software and updating the servers, juvenile home parking lot. So looking at a comparison of all the general fund budgets since 2018, this is only at the executive level, but you can see the budgeted numbers and then the actual. So you can see the years in which we've had surplus and deficits. And obviously, I'd like to point out 2020 is an anomaly. We don't think that will ever happen again. General and budget stabilization fund balances. So the tan line is the budget stabilization fund at $7.2 million, which is inclusive of the recent resolution, as you know, to include a small amount to keep it at the 20%. The brown is the assigned and unassigned fund balance of $11.1 million, creating the total general fund balance of $18.3 million, using our audited financials. So our recommendations are to use $4.7 million of unassigned fund balance to balance the general fund 2023 budget. The primary reason why it's so large is because of the wage and fringe benefits. It's an increase of $2.3 million. Capital outlay is budgeted at 1.6. Operating transfers out from general fund are 1.5 million over the 2022 budget year. However, we're continuing to research additional funding revenue sources, grants that are potentially available to cover some of these expenditures. We're also going to continue to work with recreation and facilities to prioritize capital outlay projects to reduce the level of the projects. The capital outlay budgeted countywide, which includes our includes Bay Medical Care Facility and the library, is over $4 million. So additional decisions and adjustments will have to be made on this budget to ensure fiscal responsibility, but we also want to make sure that we're maintaining excellent customer service. So we have future budget meetings that we'll have with the board. I've been working with the board coordinators to set up a schedule for how that will work going forward. So you'll get more information about that. Does anyone have any questions?
The one, could you go back to the last? Let me see. Operating transfers out from the general fund, an increase of 1.5 million over 2022. What would that be?
911 had an increase. Normally, usually, and they're waiting for their millage to get passed, but that had required an increase because of the wages and plus because of the additional capital that they need, the software and such.
So that's kind of like
they have a transfer.
That's like a loan then.
That is
So
exactly.
that won't necessarily
Right.
be a.
Exactly. That was unique and kind of a one-time thing, and that was part of the loan. Yes.
So at our MAC conference about 2 weeks ago, there was a company there talking about the pharmacy costs being a big driver. It's up to about 60% of the cost. And a lot of it is these newer drugs, the generics, the new ones that are on TV a lot, that cost a lot of money. They have a way of working with the pharmacy and the employee to keep that cost down. I think maybe we need to start looking at some of these other, I know we've had this one company for a while, but this company is called 44 North, I'll put a plug in for them, but they have a plan to keep the biological costs down, and that's where a lot of the cost is for people now, this pharmacy benefits. So I think maybe something to look at in the future.
Sure, we can contact 44 North, and we do go out for bid on prescription coverages and things of that nature. I will note that for Bay County, our prescription coverage cost has decreased at a very low rate in comparison with the book of business that Brown & Brown, who is our agencies. We're seeing the majority of our cost increase on the medical and professional stop-loss type side. Our pharmacy benefit manager does also have a program that works to discount those specialty medications, but we are fortunate in the county that we have a very high utilization of generic drugs. Our employees are definitely utilizing that at a much higher rate than we see across their entire book of business. But certainly,
Always good to keep an eye out for new ways to save money.
yeah.
Is anybody following the proposed legislation, or I don't know if it's passed at the federal level, to allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug costs, similar to what the VA does? Because that would have I don't know if we're following that, or if that's something that has gone into place yet.
Our Medicare Advantage plan is a fully insured plan, so that's a premium rate plan, and we did see a few months ago, you saw a deep decrease in the 2-year guarantee on our Medicare Advantage prescription plan, and it probably has something to do with that decrease.
Okay.
I would move to receive.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
Good
Thank
job,
you.
guys.
All right, item B, is there a motion to receive the foreclosing governmental unit report of real property foreclosure sales?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, item C, is there a motion for approval of the road patrol contracts of 2023 with the City of Auburn, Bangor Township, Frankenless, Cullen Township, Monitor Township, Pinconning Township, to include the K-9 unit, Portsmouth Township, and Williams Township?
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, item D, is there a motion for approval of the 2022 assessment rules?
I'll move it.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E, is there a motion for approval of the friend of the court grant?
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item F, is there a motion for approval of the health officer, the request for qualification for the medical examiner?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item G1, is there a motion for approval of the 2023-24 aerial application contract extension?
I'll move it.
Support.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And then item G2, is there a motion for the grant application for the Eagle Mosquito Control Scrap Tire Cleanup?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item H. Is there a motion to amend the Land and Water Conservative Fund project agreement?
So moved. Support.
Moved and supported. Can you give us a quick rundown, high-level Cliff Notes?
Sure. This was property, it's located over by the tennis courts and Veterans Park that used to be owned by the county. That property was transferred many years ago. Prior to the transfer of the property, there were grants that were held by the property owner, and for whatever reason, those grants were not transferred over at the same time as the property was transferred itself. And basically, at this point in time, DNR is just asking us to make a transfer of the grantee designation in order to clean that up.
Nice. Yep.
I see they're doing something, looks like they paved that over there. Does anybody know what's going on?
I think that I thought that they were putting in pickleball courts.
Pickleball, I heard.
Oh, okay.
Is my understanding.
Nice. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Is there a motion to receive the analyst of the general fund equity?
Move to receive.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And is there a motion to receive the update regarding Executive Directive 27-11?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, is there a motion to approve payables?
I'll move the payables.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Are there any referrals? No? Unfinished business. I have added the broadband, circling back to the ARPA funds for broadband. One of my big concerns is that I don't want all the broadband dollars to pass us by because we're sitting in a state of we don't know what to do and we don't know the best thing to do. So I'm hoping, I know Vaughn went to the conference a couple weeks ago and they had an update, and I believe Jim talked with someone in the MyHigh office as well. So maybe we could get some sort of direction, plan, idea what's best for us. Vaughn?
So I talked to Dina Bosworth down at MAC, she's their chief lobbyist, and a lot of companies are doing a study. It's a needs assessment. That way you have an idea of where the needs are, and they actually are drilling down to the addresses, everybody's address. I know the state's doing this big statewide study, but by the time we wait for the state, for their money, the federal, whatever money's coming from the state and the federal, we may miss out some other grants, which I think maybe you have already. There are some small agricultural grants for rural areas and things like that. She reaffirmed that she thought we should do our own needs assessment, that we should do one, and so we have what we call shovel ready. That's the big thing in planning nowadays, is to have data ready to put into a grant, if you have a grant that you have to put some numbers into. So she really said we should think about it. Midland's done it, Ottawa County, several counties have done their own needs assessment. Put you a little bit ahead of the game with everybody else, waiting for the state to do theirs.
Kim was first.
We did allocate money for that a while ago, and somehow somebody said, no, let's wait for the state. I think I proposed that because that study, I think it was $150,000, and have somebody come in and look for that particular reason, because if you're lumped with 83 counties, you don't know when you're going to get the money. But if you are ready to roll with data on where you need to have upgrades, then you're in a better position. I don't know what happened, that somebody brought it forward, probably voted on it. I think it did get voted on because it's no longer appropriated. The only thing to do, and you really needed to do this before these folks that do this are involved in doing studies for other places. So somehow we probably need to have somebody check into that and see if someone's out there. The guy that did the study, I can't remember who it was, that we have on hand, if Bob was here, he'd know. And they made a proposal, and I don't know how current that is or how in-depth that is, but that would be the place to start to have, and I think he did come in here once.
Yes.
And spoke, and the money was there, and then the money is not there. I think for areas of wherever the people are that don't have quality access to the internet, that puts them behind the 8 ball. We need to do everything we can as soon as we can to give them the opportunity to compete, because life is all about competing. So I don't know what we can do with it. If we have to allocate the $150,000 to bring the guy in, at least let us know where we're at. If his study that he did 7, 8 years ago is still worthwhile, but we need to do something, because if you're going to wait for the county, you're going to wait forever. And that's up in some folks' neck of the woods where people don't have good access to information, and that's what life's all about today, is information, access to information.
Ernie?
Yep, so I'll probably come into Jim, because I know that you had talked with a number of firms, or at least one in
Yes.
particular. So if, I'll let Jim speak on it if we could.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and Sean and I had a great conversation with Bay County's own Joseph Rivet yesterday, who's working with the High-Speed Internet Commission in Lansing. We'll have to wait for the state to do the needs assessment to qualify for going through the state of Michigan. USDA has about $1 billion for broadband internet access. They've had that since before COVID. I'm told it takes 2 to 3 years for the paperwork to be approved and go through numerous state, hurdles and stages before it's ever approved. That's why that $1 billion hasn't been tapped in the last 3 or 4 years. However, since the board approved it, if we want to go ahead, we had reached out to Connect Michigan. They're not doing it anymore. They did Midland and Ottawa counties. They've been retained by the state to do all 83 counties. And so that commission has a $250 million budget. We can use, as we discussed, Marie, ARP funding, or even apply for ARP grants for our local match for broadband. But I'm wondering, Sean, if you would want to do a little update also on our conversation with Joseph as of yesterday. And he's up to speed on it. He's working in Lansing through the Leo office, but actually he's sort of in the front line of launching the broadband statewide effort. So.
Sure. So in summary of our conversation yesterday, the entire state has to have a plan in order for the state to access the broadband money. So we will not be left out, because we cannot be left out. So they will, the comment was made, basically, they will be knocking at your door to do it. However, there is USDA money available, but there are a lot of hurdles. Marie had connected me to Martin Shaliga from AT&T to talk about that, and a lot of the hurdles that you talked about, Jim, permitting right of way, those kind of hurdles have not been worked out yet. We did issue a bid in March. There were 2 responses to do a needs assessment. We could reach back out, however. The state of Michigan is doing it. The FCC is also doing the maps, and it looks like this work will be done for us. So the question is, do we want to do it on our own so that it may be a little faster, or do we want to wait and see what the state is doing?
Kim?
I think that was the purpose of allocating the $150,000, is to have the study done, so when the money's there, we're not waiting in line. And I don't know, Midland is doing their own, somebody else is doing their own, I don't know why.
Midland did their own, and the part of our conversation was the head of Project Connect is now in charge of the MyHigh office. He's now in charge of the statewide plan. So the person who was doing it, Midland County did it right away, yes, but there's no one there left to do the
Do
study.
we have the firm that did the study a number of years ago?
I'm not aware of.
Somebody's got that plan.
I had asked
We
around
should
about
bring
this.
them back. We should bring them back and let them educate us somehow, because we're all saying, well, the state's got a plan. The state does have a plan, but that's not going to help these people who need access as soon as we can get it. To wait for the state, you're just going to wait longer. I think we allocated the money. We can reallocate the money and have somebody come in here and do a needs assessment, and we're all set.
The money's allocated. The money is still there. There's no unallocation of the money.
I don't know why we didn't follow through with it, but, I mean, it's important.
I would suggest we have a little analysis paralysis. We're a small county, right? So we're not like Oakland or Ann Arbor or Wayne, where they have people on staff that probably can dedicate just to this, right? So we've got that going on that we don't have. We keep getting conflicting information as to what we should do, right? Michigan Association of Counties says one thing, the state says something different. So I think we've got a little, we don't know what to do. So we're still here in this space, and we haven't moved. I did talk to Joe today as well, and,
Yeah.
you know, he said the first round of grants next year are going to the ISP. And then the 1.5 billion in 2024, he recommended the best thing for us to do is partner with the ISP, because they're going to have so much influence as to who gets what, why, where, when, and how. But I still struggle to get past, well, here we are, because he also pointed out we're behind. But in 3 years, we shouldn't be behind, because the whole state can't be behind. So I have information I don't know what to do with. That's where I'm at. Kim?
This is why we needed financial analysts to do the digging on the part of the board. We haven't had them for 8 months, so that's where we're at. We're behind the 8 ball because of that.
Are you looking up something in particular?
Yeah, I was looking up my high. So there is an office, they have 3 people. The lead lady spoke to us at the conference, and she said we should do our own study. I mean, this is a lady at my high.
Okay.
Because there's grants out there, not everybody's going to get the money. Whoever is ready with the
Right.
information was going to get the money first. And if you're at the end of the trough, you don't get the money.
Right.
There's a lot of money out there. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
not
and I
just-
don't want to see it pass us by. One of the things that I also asked Joe Rivet, I said, given that, again, we're smaller, people are stretched thin, did it make sense then for us to use part of that ARPA dollars to hire a consultant? Someone who knows how to coordinate all this business and give us direction and guidance on where we should go. He was going to make some phone calls on that, and he was not sure, because he has talked with some consultants that are just asking, these are my words, not his, I want to be clear, stupid questions to run up the bill. Questions they already know the answer to, but because there's so much money there and they can charge so much, they're running up bills.
Just like a lawyer.
There you go.
Hey.
So he, not employed, here. So he was going to make some phone calls to see if that is something that might make sense to us. So I don't know if it makes
I'd
sense to
wake you
refer
up
this
a
for a
little
month or not, but go ahead.
Ideally, Marie, if we could get Jason Allen. Jason Allen was the USDA director for Michigan for 4 years. He was my Senate seatmate for 8. Very sharp, knows all the ins and outs, and he told me, you know, way back in 2015, 2016, they had $1 billion for broadband. But again, you know, you have to find somebody with the right of way. You have the Bay County Road Commission, Consumers Energy, which has kind of resisted getting involved in broadband, because to exercise the right of way, they have to, and fulfill that role, they have to disclose all of their assets and liabilities, and they're not willing to do that. So you have Spectrum or possibly AT&T. We're
Well,
down
how-
to,
how
you know,
are
the
they gonna
county
get
itself
around it,
is not
though?
going to do this. I mean, we don't have the staff or anyone to do it. We've got to find an ISP, as you said.
Well, how is consumer going to get around the fact that the state is doing the assessment and answering those questions, are they not? The right of way and all that business?
Yeah, well, they'll be,
But that was a comment from Martin, was that those are hurdles that they haven't quite solved. So they're looking at road commissions, they're looking at railroads, they're looking at anyone who has right-of-way access. So those partnerships have now been formed.
And was that part of the original request for information?
No, that was, you asked me to speak with Martin, show you guys.
I know, but I
Oh,
think
he had
months
the-
ago, when you started to put an assessment together for bid, was that part of
For
it?
the needs assessment, the
Yeah.
needs assessment, they can identify the underserved or unserved areas, but the implementation are the roadblocks that they haven't solved.
Ernie?
So maybe, Jim, if we can reach out to Jason, who is a good guy, and maybe have him hook up with Marie to see if there's a person that he could recommend for us to,
Or if he was available himself. I mean, he's very knowledgeable about it. And Ryan Tarrant and I met with, and had several discussions on trying to launch this, and then Ryan left, and then we lost contact with Jason, but
that might be a
I'll give him
door
call.
that we could open.
Yeah, and I would think the $150,000 would pay for a needs assessment and a consultant. You know, and
Amber?
for that price, you could probably get both.
Amber?
I just want everybody to be very cognizant of the fact that this is federal money, and federal money requires us to follow our purchasing policy, and our purchasing policy would specifically require us to go out for a request for information or a request for qualification or a request for bid, whichever was more appropriate. So we cannot reach out to a specific person and ask them whether or not they're interested. We would have to put that out there in order to comply with the grant reporting requirements.
But we don't know who to go to.
That's why you put out the RFI or the RFQ or the
I
RFP.
make a motion that
We do that.
We do go out for the request for proposal.
I'll second it.
Is that the right words?
For a consultant?
For what?
Is
What
this
is
a
it for?
reallocation of the ARPA funds? Are we reallocating the $150,000 of ARPA funds?
No, we can do that at any time. The motion is that we get rolling on this process and go out for an RFP to see who can, see where we are at, if that proposal that we had done 10 years ago is of any value, but to go out and to start the process. We can either wait for the state, or we can do nothing like we've been doing in the last year. Or we can do something. Let's
But we're
do something.
talking about two different things. We're talking about a needs assessment, which we've already done. Was it
The allocation.
Yeah, the allocation and the RFP, was it?
Probably IFB.
So-
IFB. We've already done that for a needs assessment. What they were discussing was hiring a consultant. So those are two completely different things.
Okay, let me try to understand that. The need assessment is done, so we can just go get the money right now. We're ready to roll.
No.
What do we need to have done?
The money was allocated and a bid was put out. There were 2 responses to the bid at the same time.
No, we had a needs assessment.
For the needs
correct?
assessment.
A bid for the needs assessment.
So that's done.
No, a bid for the needs
Oh, the
assessment.
bid, I'm sorry.
It's been paid.
Let's do that then.
Okay, that's already been done.
You had 2 responses.
There were 2 responses. It has not.
One of which is now doing all of the work for the state. Is that what I'm understanding?
No.
No.
Yes, no?
No.
Okay.
They took themselves out.
There were different.
The ones that doing it, yeah.
The ones that did Midland and Ottawa are the ones that are now doing it for the state.
Yes, so those responses were received, but the bid has not been awarded because we were basically told by the state, don't do this, we're already going to be doing it. So you're going to be spending the money on a needs assessment that's already going to be done by the state on an entire state level. So
We can reach out to the bidders, see if they'll hold their pricing and issue the bid.
but there has been no action by the board to award that bid. So we don't have the authority as administration to award a bid. We don't know whether or not the numbers are still good. And this is very different from hiring a consultant, who would be a person to basically look for the grants and see what we would have to do and who would have to apply for the grants in order to get that ball rolling. So it's 2 different things. And the bids that were received on the needs assessment are very, very different in terms of a dollar amount. One of them would utilize almost all of the money. One of them would utilize about half of the money. So,
Jim?
Marie, do you remember the event we had at Penn County Township Hall? And I can't recall, Sharon Stallsburg would probably have those providers, but there are 3 or 4 providers in Bay County that have already received a couple of $1 million to extend broadband in Bay County. The money has not been spent. They're waiting, you know. Do you recall?
I do recall.
I think
We
you
haven't
had
reached
the point
out
of question,
because
why aren't you
Right.
spending it?
And
One of
we
them
were never
said
able to get
we
an
need
answer.
We need to ensure that the bills will be paid before we're going to lay fiber. Remember? I think AT&T too wants a guarantee of 3 years of monthly fees paid in advance or paid as they come in. Their concern is that by extending broadband to people that may or may not want it, they're not going to pay their bills. So they want to guarantee that they have a customer base before they lay it, the fiber. The other
So should-
issue is too, with the satellites, I think Mike Durancheck mentioned it on his way out. And my grandson mentioned that, and I guess, I'm not sure how reliable it is, but Starlink is available it's pretty much got universal coverage, about $110 a month through a satellite service. I don't know how fast it is, but it's apparently pretty affordable. So we don't know how much, it's $80,000 a mile to lay fiber. So it depends in those rural areas. If you've got 4 or 5 customers on 2 miles of roadway, it's going to be.
Isn't that part of the grant process, though, is to offset some of those initial costs? And I'm wondering, is that a reason to not get a needs assessment?
And
It depends on how much money you have.
Yeah.
And part of the concern is if we do go ahead and conduct our own independent needs assessment, which the state says it's going to conduct on its own, so we'll have 2. But if we do it early so we don't lose, with the assumption that we're doing this early so we don't lose out on grant money, you still run into the problem. We could have a needs assessment done and then we will have that information in front of us and absolutely no way to do anything with that information because we don't have someone such as a consultant that can tell you, okay, here's the information. Now this is where we need to go to apply for a grant. These are the companies that we need to get put together. So if you have the information and absolutely no base or expertise on what to do with the information, it's basically worth the piece of paper that it's written on. So you still have that roadblock of once you get the information, what do you do with it? If the purpose is that we're going to use that information so we're ready to apply for these federal grants, you still need to hire, who's going to be applying for those grants, on whose behalf, who's going to be reaching out to the different ISPs to see if they're interested, if they need to be partnered with under those federal grants. So it's another roadblock that we're going to run into where we do not have the capability at the county level to do that at this point with the staffing that we have.
I think first things first, we get the needs assessment done, and then when we have it, then we hire a consultant who can help us out there. This is a nationwide plan. I mean, people aren't, they're running across the same issues that we are, but you got to start somewhere. If we have an RFP, I say we get rolling on that RFP. That has never come to the board for us to vote on, I don't believe. I don't remember voting on it. It's just, so if that comes to the board, let the board decide if we want to, secure somebody to do the RFP. And then, once we get the data and we're ready to go, then if we need to hire a consultant, you hire a consultant.
And the resolution that the board voted on to authorize the issuance of the request for bid was the February 15th board meeting. So it's Resolution 22254.
I'll move that resolution.
It's already been done.
Oh, okay, so but you got... So
This authorized the issuance of the IFB, the request for bid.
So we'd need a motion to award the bid.
Yeah, I awarded. Are you going to award it to the lowest bidder or what? We haven't seen that information.
We'd go through the purchasing guidelines to make the appropriate award.
Well, let's get rolling on it. I'll make that motion.
I'll support it.
We already have a motion on the table, though, too.
And I'll just point out, that's fine with me, it's whatever the board desires, but the needs assessment for Bay County done through the Board of Commissioners will only be recognized by the USDA, not by the state of Michigan. And they have $1.67 billion for broadband. As you know, that's what Joseph told us, so. So, and then $250 million to operate the commission itself, so. But I'm told, by Joseph, that if you do your own needs assessment, then you're in line to apply, which is a very lengthy, years-long process to get the federal grants. That's probably why none of it's been spent in the last 4 or 5 years.
Madam Chair.
Ron?
So this is from My High. So this is what funds are out there right now. There's $363 million through the Federal Communications Commission's Rural Digital Opportunity Fund auction. I don't like that term. $28 million in grant awards to the state level Connecting Michigan Communities Grant Program. $32.6 million through the USDA's Reconnect program, and $4.8 million through the FCC's COVID-19 telehealth grant program. There's a lot of money out there we need to be tapping into. And as I sent you that one that
Right.
was going to expire November 1st. Or
I wonder how many of those you have to partner with an ISP.
Oh. We have to have an ISP, don't we?
Because I know that was one of the things Joe recommended, is that we see who would be interested in partnering for at least that Michigan grant money.
Is there anybody out there that can come in here and, because we're all guessing,
We
Bill said
are.
this and he said that. Can we bring somebody in that can lead us into the proper direction? Or we can just sit and wait. That's what we've been doing. I don't like sitting and waiting. I like doing something.
I'm looking for a recommendation now.
I'll reach out to Jason Allen again, see if he'd make an appearance here and sort of explain to us again. And we could have Joseph, who's here pretty much. I think he's working remotely quite a bit, so he'd be available to come in and talk to us. We all know Joseph, and it was pretty enlightening. He's learned quite a bit in the short time that he's been with the commission.
Right.
So, but yeah, we want to. It may be duplicitous spending, but if we want to do it, I don't have an issue with that.
Vaughn?
yeah, needs assessment, so I need to know what that means, because what they're asking for is a house, an address, a GPS location for people that need internet. They want to drill down to that level. If that's what the needs assessment does, that's fine, but if it doesn't, we need to do that.
They determine unserved, served, and underserved. So 3 categories.
That's right, need the
Every
testing
address.
also. They need to do the testing of the service that they do have to see if it is adequate or not.
So I don't think it would get to that level. House, address, GPS.
Testing.
I have visions of a county map that has different colors based on location. Ernie?
So there's a motion and support. I'm not sure where we're going with that.
I don't know what the motion is for. At this point, we went out for bids, we received the bids, we were instructed not to move any further with them at that point in time. The bids are now stale. Usually what happens at this process is that we follow our regular purchasing policy, we get a group together, we look at the bids, they rank it based on criteria, a recommendation is made at administrative level, and that recommendation is made to the board to approve an award of the bid.
So I think the motion then is to have you guys go the next step in making contact.
With the companies that submitted the bids. We can do, I don't think that you need a motion to do that.
Well-
Direction to do that is fine.
Okay, well, that's what we were hoping
And then
to
bring
get
that
you to go
information
that.
back to the board.
Yep.
We can do that.
And then in the meantime, if Jim will reach out to Jason.
Yeah, Jason.
to get some more information, and maybe Jason can come and address the board. I know he's still living in Traverse City.
Yeah.
So, okay. That gives you, does that make you happy in getting some more movement forward?
Yes.
Instead of just waiting for the state, which sounds like we're still going to end up having to rely on the bureaucrats in Lansing to move through this, which has already been a number of years. So unfortunately, things don't move fast.
I think one of the other things we could do I don't know who the contact is, though, but if part of these state grants involve ISPs and partnering with ISPs, how we would need, it would behoove us to find out who is interested in expanding into Bay County, and maybe we could partner with them to move a grant forward faster or get a higher grant.
But I think we need to have administration go this next step and reach out to the people that,
Submitted bids.
correct.
Yeah.
That's our next step. Then we can come back and address your concerns.
Jamie, do you?
I'm just so I'm keeping everything straight. So
How you doing? Did you write your pencil down and
I
nothing?
wrote a bunch of stuff down, so I just want to make sure that I think I'm understanding everything the way that it's rolled out appropriately. So the state has indicated that in order for you to get any of the money that's allocated to the state, you have to wait for them to go ahead and do their needs analysis, because that's all they're going to do is follow their needs analysis, regardless of whether or not you have your own needs assessment. They're going to follow theirs, not whatever you come up with. The sole purpose for possibly doing our own needs assessment would then be for the possibility of using that needs assessment to tap into some of the extra funding that you've talked about that's out there with like
USD.
$363 million from, I don't know, I wrote down a bunch of different ones, $28 million from the state with their separate funds, 4.8 from telehealth program from COVID. So a variety of other things that you might be able to get little grants here and there if you have your own needs assessment to be able to bring some of that money in for that possibility as well. Is that what I'm understanding? Right? Is that right?
I don't think anybody knows. We're just talking here back and forth. Let's bring somebody in that can give us the information we need and start, we can get going on the RFP that we've already approved, and you guys give us that information, and you make a recommendation on who we go with, we hire them. But let's bring somebody in. I mean, we're just talking, a couple beers, we could talk all night, but we're not getting anywhere. Let's bring somebody in that can help us out.
Well, we've had Spectrum here, and I'm not sure what the reaction was to their presentation. You remember? And Spectrum presented.
I think they're all interested as long as there's somebody else's money is involved, and this is a lot of federal dollars coming, so they'll all be interested if somebody's partnering with them. But we don't know. I still think we need to bring somebody in. Other communities have done their own analysis. Maybe we got the money there. I think we got to do something because.
But they haven't received any grants. I don't believe Midland has embarked on broadband.
Pardon?
Midland has not embarked on broadband yet.
No, they're ready.
Their needs assessment's been done for a couple of years.
They're ready. We're not, right?
But they still, to get it through the state, you're still going to have to wait until the state does their needs assessment in Midland County, because the other one will not be accepted by the state. USDA, Rural Development, they'll look at it. But again, from what Joseph says, very lengthy, cumbersome, years-long waits. So we'll see. Could be years long in the other way, too. I don't know what they're going to do with the Upper Peninsula.
By the time they get it done, Jamie will have hair.
There will be some serious advancements in science there. Genetic manipulation, I'm sure, somehow.
All right, so they're going to circle back to that RFP and get some updated figures or see if they're still valid. That's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
Okay. Yeah?
Yep.
Ernie?
So if we're done with kicking that can down the road.
Yep.
I see that Mr. Strauss is here, so under unfinished business, maybe Mr. Strauss.
Did we get to your conversation that you wanted to add yet, though?
No, that's
Under new
next.
business.
That's under new business.
Yep, but thank you. So if it's possible to ask Joel to come up and maybe give us an update on facilities. Thank you.
We scared a lot of people away with this broadband conversation. Did you notice?
We're good.
Okay. Last month, I came to the board to seek authorization to do a an appraisal and a build-out analysis on potentially up to 2 properties. We have begun that process. We've identified at least one site where we're doing that. So let me talk about the appraisal that needs to be done first, and then we're kind of simultaneously doing a build-out analysis. And I will also talk about potential partners as well. It's been determined that in order to acquire property using any kind of federal or ARPA funds, that what's commonly referred to as a yellow book appraisal, more appropriately or subjectively would be the appraisal on steroids, needs to be done. And so what that is it's not just a regular property appraisal where they take a look at what the value might be of the property and then report back to you. It's actually an appraisal that's done that looks at a variety of different facets, including environmental conditions, the building conditions, any types of liens or anything that are involved. And it's more commonly done for properties that are undeveloped, say, for example, in the case of a government that is using eminent domain to purchase or acquire property to build, a road or, a building or a structure. And it's really intended to ensure that the property owner receives a just compensation for what they get. Conversely, though, it also prohibits that if whatever the appraisal comes in at, that is the maximum amount that can be spent on a particular property. So that's being done right now, and we've engaged a company out of Grand Rapids to start this process, and we're paying for that with health department funds in order to happen. We expect that in about 30 days, actually a little less than 30 days, that appraisal should be done on this particular property. Additionally, in the property that's in question, we're looking at potential partners and needs of the facility that we expect and how much would be involved. We're talking with an architectural firm, McMillan and Associates and WTA out of Saginaw, to complete that as well within that same time period too, with the understanding that I would come back probably within about 40 or 60 days or even sooner if it's possible to the board to seek full authorization for that funding. And so that, as we discussed individually before too, is that we have a number of potential partners in this endeavor. All of them have indicated that they would rather lease than purchase, and that's understandable. But they're not ready to commit until the board commits and makes that authorization for
Well, I think our
purchase of the
direction
property.
was to lease and not own, correct?
I believe it was to acquire. So there are different options if we want to do leasing. I think in the long term, that's going to be more expensive. We can provide more detail on that. It's my understanding, though, that it was fairly open whether it was an acquisition of the property either by outright purchase or by leasing.
All right, so I guess you need to bring us more accurate numbers to look at. I just think for the county, I'd rather not own real estate. I'd rather,
Sure.
I mean, we're just getting out of owning some real estate, so I don't know that we want to,
So I think that all things are on the table to be examined
Sure.
and looked at.
Sure.
And part of that would be that it could be a third-party organization that actually owns as some kind of consortium of ownership, and that way that consortium ownership would actually manage the property, and it wouldn't be the county's responsibility either.
Good. So things are moving forward.
They are moving forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
You're welcome.
That's exciting. Okay. Item number 1 under new business, Mr. Krygier.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to look into hiring Bob Redmond as a part-time Analyst to review the budget that's just been submitted so that we can get it approved and information back to the committee or the board in a timely fashion. Last year, we were able to get through the budget nice and early, and I'm hoping that that's something we can achieve again this year.
Should be able to.
Have you spoken to him about it?
Off the cuff,
Off the cuff.
he would be willing.
I'll support that.
Okay. Moved and supported. Did you have a dollar amount, number of hours? What did that look like?
I would leave that up to the board chair to look at that and then come back to us. I mean, we've certainly saved a ton of money not having a financial analyst all this time, so I would think we would look at what he was being paid and come up with something comparable to that rate. And I can't imagine that more than 40 hours would be needed to go through the budget. I wouldn't think. I mean, with Kim working with Bob, as we've done in the past, and sharing information with us so that we can, be satisfied with what numbers we've been given.
So the motion is to look into,
Well, I would say the motion would be to bring Bob Redmond back. I'm not sure on the specific hours or the rate of pay, but I'd like to have the chair work those details out and then share it with us so we can move forward as quickly as possible.
okay. And Kim supported the motion. Is there any other discussion relative to the motion? Vaughn?
I don't know, he's done a good job in the past.
Well, 20-plus years.
Yeah, he's got a lot of experience. It's a short-term thing. I guess I'm okay with it for short-term.
Not going to change your mind now, right?
Not gonna change my mind.
Just want to make sure.
Maybe.
Jamie, do you have thoughts?
All I know is he knows a whole lot more about the budget than I would, trying to look through it myself and understand everything appropriately. So with all of his years of experience, and I know, as Commissioner Krygier said, the dollars saved in that position being open pretty much all year, you're not going to be using a whole lot. In fact, you'll still be saving over the commission's budget, so.
I think there's probably something to be said for an independent set of eyes who's knowledgeable of the workings that hasn't been around for a while to look a little objectively at things we're held responsible for, since the budget is our primary charge. So, any other, Jim? No? Good?
No,
Okay.
I can understand why the board would like to have a proper review. Someone that might come in brand new would have a steep learning curve, obviously, so. And I think the board's pretty familiar with what they've already included in the budget in terms of their approval, so.
Any other?
Board's pleasure.
Any other comments, questions? Should I do a roll call or all in favor? Does it matter? All in favor. Will be fine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Then the second item under new business is the the purchase of 2 generators for the 9/11 dispatch.
I'll move those.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, is there a need to go into closed session?
There is not, Madam Chair.
Any miscellaneous announcements?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. That was my longest